I want to thank Honda Motorsports for supporting the BDR. They've really been a good partner the last few years financially. They also really believe in our mission to preserve riding opportunities, and so I was lucky enough to ride an Africa Twin, which was a blast on this ride, so we owe a lot to Honda and really appreciate their support.
BDR has a relationship with the BMW Riding Academy on the East Coast. It's a perfect opportunity for people who are just starting out or getting back into riding off-road to go out there and train and get prepared to ride a BDR.
With the facility we have here at the Performance Center, we can literally put them through almost anything that they're going to see out there in the real world.
They're actually located pretty close to the East Coast route, so definitely check them out and make sure you take a course before you ride a BDR. The official dealership of the Mid-Atlantic route is the Cross Country dealership. They're situated perfectly, not too far from the BDR, but they have all the resources to support the riders. We're very excited for them to be on board this year.
We have the facility to help you with absolutely everything you need, whether it be service, parts, accessories, apparel, or just advice. We are here to help.
Eagle Rider Pittsburgh offers a variety of late model off-road adventure bikes for riding the Mid-Atlantic BDR. All bikes come with hard or soft panniers, protective add-ons, and the correct tires for your BDR adventure. Eagle Rider offers guided and self-guided BDR tours, and the staff has extensive adventure riding experience to help you plan your ride. For fly and ride renters, airport pickup is available. Eagle Rider Pittsburgh, your choice for the best rental bikes, tours, gear, and support.
Connected.
My son says to me one time, "Daddy, I know why you go ride on Sunday, so you don't have to go to church." And I said, "We pray in the woods." I'm the Reverend of the Church of the Holy Four-Stroke. Our motors, forged in Germany, made their valves always be in spec. Your route we follow through the highway and the forest, and lead us not into wetlands or private property. Give us this day enough gas to get home, and may we only be issued warnings. For thou is the horsepower, the torque to get us through, ashes to ashes, rust to rust. Amen. Real adventure is closer than you think.
I'm Rob Watt, and I'm the Director of Route Development, and we're getting ready to start the Mid-Atlantic BDR. The Mid-Atlantic BDR starts in Virginia. It'll go into West Virginia, then back into Virginia, and then back into West Virginia, and then into Maryland, and then we pop into Pennsylvania to the New York border.
I'm really looking forward to this ride because it's going to be so different from the West Coast. Many of the states we've already done, I had some experience with. And the East Coast, I really don't know what to expect out here. There's a lot of history here, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and I don't know a lot about those subjects, so I'm interested to learn and just to see what the off-road riding is like out here.
It's going to be a really good opportunity for a lot of people here that are, they're apprehensive about getting into backcountry adventure touring on big, heavy motorcycles to get their feet wet with a route that's not intimidatingly difficult.
I think the perception is in the riding community that there's not that many riding opportunities on the East Coast, partially because there's not that much public land available compared to the western states. But we have a lot of riders who are communicating with me from the East Coast or donating to the BDR and wanting us to develop the route here so they have opportunities to ride and resources for adventure travel on the East Coast.
A lot of the riders that we're finding coming over and doing our West Coast BDRs are from the East, and they've been after us for a long time, say, hey, we want a route here on the East Coast. And after we got kind of our major ones done in the West, we said, let's go do one on the East.
So I own a company called James Howard Creative Group. It's a creative agency. We do marketing communications. Our clients range from big multinational brands to small nonprofits, which we handle pro bono, like the BDR. I try to help out as much as I can because I really believe in the organization.
My name's Jack O'Connor, and I'm here for the adventure of my lifetime. My home is Point Pleasant, New Jersey, sometimes referred to as the Jersey Shore. My real business is I do point of sale for restaurants, the touchscreen stuff. But I'm trying to work my way into being a professional adventure organizer. So here we go.
I was really nervous about it because it really isn't 100% the same of all of the other BDRs that are in the can right now, all of the other routes that are done. I was a little skeptical going in, thinking, wow, is the crew really going to like it? Are they going to find it interesting?
This is a huge opportunity for the East Coast people to experience the roads that, even though they might live here, but maybe have never been on these roads. And then definitely for the people in the western states to showcase what the East Coast has to offer.
So this particular route, we decided to sort of start it out as maybe a novice to intermediate, to give people an opportunity that aren't exposed to dirt very often, to have the ability to ride a 1,200-mile route, to be able to build up some confidence so then they can go out west, rent a bike, or take their bike out west and be able to ride now maybe a more difficult route.
When I typically ride a BDR, it's on the other side of the country. So for me, this was excellent because I didn't have to deal with jet lag, time zones, temperature differences.
You're headed all the way up 81 for about the next 10 hours, right?
I'm not sure exactly.
We're sticking on the off-road, like the dirt roads, the back roads, as much as we can.
Really?
Yeah.
So 11?
Not on the highways at all.
A dirt road?
Yeah.
How can you get up there on a dirt road?
That's the objective, is try to get from point A to point B is with, without doing too much road work.
Okay.
Well, right now we're at the first vista. We've started, we're probably about 25 miles into it. What you're looking at out here, the vista drops into the valley where Marion is. And we'll pass through Marion, and then we're going to run up into those higher mountains back up in there and then start serpentining. So we'll be pretty much in dirt once we pass Marion for the rest of the day.
I see the clouds have come back. It was perfectly blue this morning, and now the clouds are moving in.
Well, there's always like little microclimates between the valleys and the mountains. In one place it could be rain, and another place it's sunny just a mile away. It's pretty neat.
All right, well, take us to the sunny parts.
Yeah, well, here we are.
The town Marion was named after Francis Marion. He's the father of our guerrilla warfare for the U.S. Military system now.
We're on day one on the BDR, and in my experience, most of the accidents that we've had when someone went away to the hospital, it's almost always on day one or the beginning of day two. What's your advice for people on day one?
Well, the main thing is just watching speed and anticipating that every corner there's going to be someone around it. And then also just figuring out what the soil's like. You know, there's been some slick spots in there and some leaves that have been on the corners, which I'm not used to seeing leaves, you know, in the corners like that. So it's just trying to figure out, okay, what kind of terrain do we have and what's it feel like, and keeping the speed down, and then later in the week you can bust it up a little bit.
The first day is always a little bit challenging in terms of your body just getting used to being on the bike. You really had to be on your toes because there are some slippery sections and really tight corners.
In the last year, the BDR has introduced an initiative called Ride Right, which is a great program to encourage riders to stay to the right of the tracks. It becomes really important on these twisty trails when you can't see through the turn, and a lot of times there's a truck or another bike heading your way. So, you know, the best practice is to stay to the right when in question, or all the time if you can.
That was excellent. It had to be the twisty section I ever did. Dirt, tail of the dragon.
Just get used to the bike. Sometimes you're on a new bike, or it's been a while since you've been on your bike, or you've got new tires or fresh tires. Just get used to it and figure out the terrain. It'll come to you throughout the week, but don't push it on day one, because that's usually when people end up leaving in a helicopter or an ambulance or something
Exactly.
bad.
And we don't want that to happen.
For me, it was fine. I loved it. I didn't have any issues. Give me some more.
Felt like that was almost like riding in the Alps, you know? Going into the little forest, tight, little skinny paved roads up through the trees, coming down into some farms. It was really kind of unlike anything we have on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's fairly typical of what we see in Pennsylvania, in this area, Virginia. A lot of that between the valleys, over the mountains, into the farms, back in, back up.
The biggest surprise for me was how many churches there are on this route.
There's a spot in West Virginia near the Shenandoah 500 where there's a church and a strip club right next to each other, and they share the parking lot because they're different times of the events. But yeah, everywhere you go, there's a church.
We stopped into this little shop to get a bite to eat, and it's right off the Appalachian Trail.
So where are we at here in relation to the trail?
You're right beside of it. You came out on the trail right there when you came out that road.
Yeah. So how often do you see hikers come through?
Oh, every few days this few comes through here.
Yeah. Is there a busy season?
That's it. That's the end of April, May, and the 1st of June is busy. Most of the ones going north are the ones is the busy time. The southbounders is just...
How many come through on a typical day in the busy season?
Busy season, something you might see 60 people in a day. Yeah.
Morning. I'm feeling great myself. We only got a week to go.
A little DEET to keep the ticks away.
Whew, that's stinky. God.
I'm not used to doing these multi-day, long-distance, overnight stays. You know, I do 200 or 300 miles a day sometimes.
So Mountain Lake Lodge is where they filmed Dirty Dancing, you know, the epic film that we all saw from the 80s. And we had breakfast this morning in the actual room where they filmed many of the scenes, and we parked our bikes out front where some of the scenes were shot. So it was really cool to actually be there, you know. And this is the little tribute room, I guess. They've got all the photos from the film, and they've got some quotes and things from the film. And there's also tissues on the wall in case you're brought to tears by actually being here at the place where they filmed Dirty Dancing.
It's a classic movie, and so to be able to stay there and see some of the places that they were filming, you know, was kind of a cool spot to be. And, you know, I'd recommend anyone
doing the route, think about staying there.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
One of the cool things about the Mountain Lake Lodge is you go from the property right onto dirt, and pretty fun stuff right there from the lodge.
One of the things that you're going to want to do on this route is you will want to have a GPS. There's too many forks and turns and roads that go off in different directions. You will need a GPS to do it. It's unlike most of our other routes, but I think this one's going to be way too difficult to not have a GPS unit and our downloaded tracks to complete it.
People in your group are going to come across a considerable amount of deer. So deer is a real caution. Turkeys are another one. They're not super intelligent animals. They pop up at any point.
Seen a lot of turtle. We've seen them on pavement. We've seen them on gravel.
5 black bear, 3 or 4 porcupine. Saw coyotes, snakes.
This is a black racer snake. They're not poisonous. What the snakes do is they come onto the blacktop to warm up. But what we usually do is chase them off the road, because a lot of times trucks that come down, they won't see them and they kill them. And we try to do the right thing and preserve the snakes. So I'm gonna get a little stick and give them a little push. Wake up. All right, come on. Let's go. All right, come on, start moving. Move it out of here, come on. Come on, move it out. Thank you very much. Okay, so we just did the right thing. We chased him off the road because a truck or something else will come down and run him over. They won't see him. Us motorcycles are a little more observant than the truck drivers.
Tub Run is awesome. That was, everything I like about adventure motorcycle terrain, where it was tight to medium radius turns, killer traction, you're kind of going down through some washes and, up and down. It was like a little roller coaster sort of a road, and it was just perfect. I mean, it's as good as it gets. Certainly there are some roads like that on the West Coast that maybe have bigger views and stuff. This was all kind of under the canopy, but, it was like woods racing, but on big bikes.
If you want to find good roads, look for gap, run, hollow. A run is where the river or water would flow after a rain. So that's how these roads got their names, from the terrain that they built them on. They're just a blast. I'm laughing in my helmet riding this, I gotta admit.
I didn't look down at my GPS once because I didn't care if we were on the track or not. I just wanted to keep going. The first couple of days down in West Virginia were just amazing. Twisty and fun and fast, and really kind of be aware of, because there was so many turns.
But you could go into corners with a lot of confidence that you're not going to wash out and come out of the corner faster than I like to ride, but the rest of the group was just doing great.
This thing is just perfect, second gear, super twisty. I mean, one of the corners, I was pretty sure I did a complete circle because it just kept going and going and going and going.
Man, I tell you guys, that was absolutely one of the best 31 miles that on the planet.
So I just made a waypoint called End Rally Moto Stage. That's all I'm saying.
One of the cool elements of the BDR routes is they are done in sections, and if you fall behind on your time that you have allocated, you can always skip sections, or you can come back later and do sections, or you can do a BDR 1 or 2 sections at a time on weekends. That's really one of the cool elements.
In order for us to get to Warm Springs in time to have a decent dinner and a warm bed and not ride in the dark, we're going to get on some pavement and head right to Warm Springs.
Yeah, that section of road from Covington up to Warm Springs, US Highway 220, is outstanding. So if anybody's tight for time like we were today and they want to hit an awesome segment of paved road, hit that section.
So right now, tonight, we're in Warm Springs. And it's kind of a historic area. Just up the road is Hot Springs, which is where the Homestead is, which is a famous omni resort where a lot of big golf tournaments have taken place. If you get time, get off the route, just drive through the little town, because it's definitely worth it.
This building used to be the original courthouse for this area, and there's a safe back behind the bar, and that was where they kept all the records and stuff. And then the building that you guys stayed in was the jailhouse, and there's still a jail door.
The town of Warm Springs and Hot Springs, there's real healthy springs here, and they built a hotel and a resort, and George Washington gave the guy the property for his service in the Army, and wow, a lot of cool stuff going on.
I love these roads, you know, with the green center strip like this, like what you see now. And
Well, I'm liking the looks of this GPS track coming up ahead. Look at how squiggly the road is.
Yeah, it's this kind of stuff in here. It's so beautiful.
What I really noticed was different between the routes we have in the West and the East Coast is that you get these beautiful landscapes, rolling hills, and just scenery that we don't see in the West.
Absolutely beautiful, twisty through these gorgeous meadows, beautiful little towns.
It's not just long slogs on boring interstates. You're hopscotching through awesome countryside villages and little hamlets and just cool vistas. Kevin had created a route that had a lot of views, which is kind of rare in the Appalachians.
There's going to be a little bit of road tracks out here because we've been here a lot longer than you have out west. The road systems, been here for hundreds of years, and so a lot of them have been paved, and so we've had to kind of skirt around that a little bit, and it hasn't been off highway all the way.
I think for a lot of people it'll be recognized as kind of a welcome hiatus from the dirt, and that's something that's really cool about this route is that it stitches together really good pavement with really good dirt.
Amazing road.
And fresh, too.
Yeah, this is freshly paved. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Holy cow. That's outstanding.
Yeah, the Mid-Atlantic BDR doesn't have as much technical riding, so I haven't been scared very many times. It's been pretty easy and groovy. There's been some pretty fun stuff where it was twisty, so it's been pretty fun, but less technical,
There's a lot of tree hollows. There's a lot of single track paved roads that meander through these open little valleys, these farming communities.
This was old Slim's grocery store, and it was late 60s, early 70s up until 85 it was in service. And Slim ran it, and he had a pretty good business. It was even in the New Yorker magazine.
This route is not a route to get lazy on, especially in the South so far. There are a ton of turns that sneak up on you.
It was, this is a sharper turn than I was expecting.
A lot of times when we were running yesterday, I'm running sweep and I'd see brake marks that are going straight into a corner.
I was talking and not paying attention. Good thing I can do emergency stops.
I think there are more turns and twisties on this than Idaho. Idaho I used to think had more turns than anything, but once you get out here you'll realize that every straight has a corner.
Technically, it's not a difficult route. There's not ledges and sand, but it is mentally a very taxing route. So,
on this trip, there's only 3 water crossings on the entire time when water's normal, when it's not raining. And they're right near each other, and they can be a little deep. When we went through them, they weren't that deep, maybe 6 to 12 inches deep, and they were fun. When we were scouting this thing in June, they were a lot deeper. We had the water up to our knees through there. So, just depending on what kind of range you've had and what the weather's been like, they can be a little wider and a little more challenging, but they were fun. I sure had a good time splashing Court, and he certainly got me the first time, but I got him back.
Pretty interesting. I'm just looking for plastic cup because I forgot to bring that in my camping kit, so I'm going to see what I can find. There's a lot of bullets, a lot of crossbows, general weaponry, and then there's a whole Confederate pride section over there that Fonzie was shopping for a new license plate frame at.
Smoke Hole Road, you know you're there because all of a sudden you've got these big cliffs on your left side and you've got the river on the right. It was a beautiful, absolutely pristine paved road, and the curves could not have been better. When we stopped at our next stop, we were all looking at each other and like, oh my God, that was absolutely incredible.
From a rating perspective, it's G2 or better. The things that differentiate the top tier roads from all of these that are outstanding is scenery. And so when you do have a road that has that twisty undulation to it, it's got elevation change, it's got some peril, like if you go off the road, you're probably gonna die. But it also has the scenic aspect to it, then that's the top tier ride. That's where we try to ride, 20, 30, 50,000 miles to find as many of those roads to tell people to go to those.
I had a great time. As you can tell, I'm a little dusty. Probably after I get my helmet off, I might have a raccoon face. Let's see. Survey says. But well worth the ride.
Where we stayed was the Smoke Hole Caverns, and we stayed at the lodge because that's the only place that will let you stay one night. They have cabins that are further down the road that are beautiful, but you have to stay there 2 nights. Right at the lodge is where the Smoke Hole Caverns are. And they have stalactites and all the different stuff that was in there. And I guess they used to do stills, back years ago. There were moonshine stills inside. And you can go take a tour, if you want to schedule your trip for a little extra time, go by and see the Smoke Hole Caverns.
As soon as you leave Virginia and you're running up in towards Maryland, then you're getting into a considerably denser population area. Washington, D.C. is directly east from us right now. So even though it may be the Appalachian mountain range, we found that a considerable amount of the roads were paved because there was a considerable amount of population living in the mountains.
This morning we immediately got onto some really cool, like lane-and-a-half roads. And you're gonna see a lot of those on this trip. And the one thing to keep in mind is that we're going through farmland and through these people's neighborhoods. So when you get into these areas where there's some houses on either side, slow down and respect the fact that we're guests through these people's neighborhoods, and give them a wave. We always wave to everyone we go by, and they always wave back. So make sure that we, as adventure riders, act as great ambassadors to our sport, and we'll be able to do this throughout the country.
There's a really cool roadside point of interest that we stopped at called Horn Camp. This small schoolhouse was still owned and operated by a woman by the name of Betty and her husband Ernie. And they made it their life's passion and mission to kind of restore it and keep those memories alive that she had learned from her mother and her grandmother.
My family went to school here. My brother, my mother, and all of the siblings in her family. My grandmother went to school here, and the oldest picture that I have is from my grandmother's 1907, a group of the students back on the wall over there. We have had reunions here, and we've learned the history throughout the years, so I just kind of recorded in my mind of who and what.
Every single aspect of the schoolhouse was just a nostalgic remembrance, and it was pretty accurate as far as, you know, her saying even these small biting boards are still exactly what the children used back in the late 1800s and things like that. So that was a fantastic experience.
It's been used for Halloween parties, for taffy pools, just various things. But now we have all of our collectibles in here, so it's just more or less a little museum open to whoever would like to visit. And we're so glad you folks stopped to see us. Really happy about that.
My first impression of Maryland was over that toll bridge. Somebody said it's the last privately operated toll bridge in the United States. If you looked up close, they used old railroad tracks to actually hold the bridge from just falling apart. She was the toll operator. She had a little pewter cup on a long wand that she would just hold out the window, and you'd drop your change in it, and then she'd say, "You just made my day." And right after that, off to the left, there were a series of locks that were coming down the canal.
Canal was built, started in about 1821, and it was supposed to go from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh and further, but they only built it from Washington, D.C. to Cumberland, Maryland.
A lot of coal came through here, a lot of mineral for iron, and they were running it up and back and forth up into Ohio. Ohio was bringing logs down, and it's a big trade area.
The people who built it were indentured German and Irish immigrants, and to get them to work, they promised them $8 to $12 a day, depending on their skill, 3 meals of meat and vegetables, and a reasonable amount of whiskey. Now, as an Irishman, I wonder what a reasonable amount of whiskey per day is. But the construction fell behind, and they took away that whiskey ration, and then it fell behind even more, so they added it back in.
If you live on the East Coast and you want to go do a BDR, it's doable by all means, but it means a couple of things. You either have to rent a bike or you've got to ship your bike, and both are expensive propositions. Having something like an East Coast BDR, the Mid-Atlantic, is just is going to be a gift to everybody in the community.
I'm just excited. This is like a culmination of everything I've done in my life, all coming together at one thing, and there's a lot of population here in the Washington-Baltimore corridor. What I'm trying to do is give them a place to ride.
Getting our first camp put together here on the C&O Canal. But it's a cool camp. We're down here with a lot of other tent goers, and everyone's getting their tent set up, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do for dinner.
So this is my hammock that I'm going to try and sleep in, and this is the rain fly from my tent. And I'm not going to set up my tent, I'm just trying to make the rain fly work to keep the rain off me if it rains.
First night camping, we got in here a little late. We set up our tents, we went in and got some pizza, ended up picking up some drinks and that, brought it back to camp, and we had a little fire going, so we ate pizza and, as usual, told stories until we all said enough's enough and went to bed. Sleeping last night was actually the best night so far of sleeping. It was the frogs and the birds, and just everything was grinding, and the crickets and stuff like that. It was very pleasant. It was really good.
Last night was a little tough for me. In my packing, I had to weigh weight, balance, size, and the one thing I sacrificed was a mattress pad. So pretty much I was sleeping on the rocks. I put my riding shorts back on because they got a little bit of pads on the hips, and I got through the night. My wife says I could fall asleep anywhere, and I managed to do that last night, so I'm ready to go.
So there's a lot of history on the Mid-Atlantic BDR, and I think the center of the history is really in the center of the route when we get into the Civil War area.
This is sort of the epicenter of the Civil War. Gettysburg is about an hour's ride from here.
Most of the open fields and clearings that you see were battlefields at one time. We went through a famous battlefield called Antietam. We came through there in the morning and it was just shrouded in a veil of mist. So you couldn't really see anything, but it was really cool because it would almost bring you back to what those soldiers probably dealt with that entire time they were out there. We didn't get to stay there very long, but it was the 155th year remembrance to the day. And so everybody that was a big Confederate Yankee buff, they had dressed up in the old traditional garb and were out there.
In Antietam, there was an engagement between the North and the South, and in those 2 days of fighting, there were approximately 23,000 Americans lost their lives in 2 days, exceeding the loss of life in the Vietnam War.
Gettysburg pales in comparison with respect to loss of life. Yet Gettysburg got all the press because that's where Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address.
This is the pivotal battle. You know, this is for lack of a better word, it's a draw. But this is what gives Lincoln the confidence to release the Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves. You know, this is a draw, but it's slightly a victory. We've repulsed Lee's people. It's time to move on this, and this is the turning point for the Civil War. You know, this is when things really, people start to realize that it might not go as smoothly as we thought. This isn't going to be a quick and easy thing. This is a very bloody affair. You know, they talk about this over here. 300 men here, artillery-wise. 80 are killed, 60 dead horses. If you go behind the Dunkirk Church, there's a Pennsylvania group. They lose, what was it? 80-something men and
90
300
wounded,
yeah,
50 some
50
odd
dead
killed.
in 20 minutes. Just gone.
Wow.
Right, so you start to realize, you know, you're raising regiments from small towns. In one conflict, in 20 minutes, in a small field, half the population's gone. How does that affect a hometown? You know, either side. Yeah. It's just.
Is that a bayonet? It's on your hip.
Yep.
So did they use those much here in this battle, or was it more long range stuff?
More firing and everything. You know, you start to see guys that are in positions like the sunken lane, and they're just behind there, just firing and firing. If you're advancing, you may have affixed a bayonet, but it gets in the way of loading. The bayonet is just, I think, it's
last resort sort of thing when you're really close.
Give them the cold steel. When you're out of everything, it's your last bat. Yeah.
All of this death and injured soldiers, you know, there was people coming in helping, and there was this one woman that was bringing in medical supplies to the battlefield and wound up being the person who founded the American Red Cross. Her name was Clara Barton. It's amazing. I would have never thought that the American Red Cross came out of the Civil War, but it did.
We're not far from the same differences that they were 155 years ago, and that's the scary thing. We're a very young nation. We're an experiment, and people want to get bent up about politics, but at the end of the day, like people like me, I'm out here. This is just to represent Americans that believed in something. We're here because they fought for whatever it was. We're here because of them. If they hadn't had this battle, where would we be? You know, wars are never the thing to have, but it was our trial by fire for a country. To make this union last, we have to go through this, and it ain't over yet. We just hope that there's no bloodshed, you know?
Harpers Ferry, it was provisions route for the soldiers during the Civil War. The actual town is sloped on a steep hill.
The buildings were very historic. I mean, you felt like you were in Europe somewhere as we were pulling down that main little skinny lane.
I mean, it's a charming tourist town now, but subsequently there's cool cafes and shops dotting the street. There's cool pubs, and there's also like a historical tour right outside of town that you can actually walk and see different kiosks that take you back to what that town was used for.
The Union had an encampment in here. It was their ammunitions, a sort of their armory, and a group of Confederate soldiers, or 3,000 or 4,000, somewhere in there, actually came off the hill, captured it, and at one point I believe there was 13,000 prisoners of war sitting in the valley down here.
You've got a beautiful town here.
Thank you, thank you. Did you guys stay here?
We're not, we're just passing through, but I'm from the East Coast, and this just reminds me of my childhood vacations with my family. They would bring us to all these historic sites.
Where are you coming from?
Colorado, Washington, a couple guys from Jersey.
Wow!
So all over, yeah.
Welcome to Harpers Ferry.
Thank you. We're glad to be here. Beautiful town.
Yes.
Beautiful flowers too.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
A lot of people migrate in and out of here because this is also an intersection for people that are walking the Appalachian Trail to be able to come through this area to be able to cross the Potomac.
The route, in my opinion, has definitely changed from when we started down in Virginia. The further north you get, you see a lot of antebellum buildings, old Victorian buildings. You see a lot of stone buildings that were kind of reminiscent of the way they used to build things back during the Civil War.
Interesting stone wall on our left there. That looks pretty old. So we're north of Harpers Ferry, south of the Mason-Dixon line, which is the border between Maryland and Pennsylvania. And the better part of the northern half of this route will be in Pennsylvania. We'll be crossing that border fairly soon. And we're going through an area that's fairly agricultural. Rolling farmlands, corn, beans.
The houses and the farms have really changed. Down in Virginia, they were kind of small. They almost looked like subsistence farms or kind of hobby farms where there wasn't major implements. You didn't see, large-scale dairy operations. You didn't see a lot of cattle. It was just kind of random little things. And then as we got towards the center, kind of where the Civil War history is, and that is, we were treated in the middle of the day with the South Mountain Creamery. It's a dairy, and they create their own ice creams and milk, and they had some other products there for sale. And so we stopped there for lunch and had some estate ice cream, and it was very good. It was a really nice treat. Good folks there, and just a really beautiful dairy farm that we were just right on property.
We're in the last section of Maryland, heading north through the forest towards the Pennsylvania border.
As we headed from Maryland into Pennsylvania, heading north, we went through the Mesho State Forest and got to see some nice green trees again and some fun, skinnier track riding.
We start hitting dirt again, and at that point we go through another section of National Forest area, and we come out in Newville. PA is where we'll be. So we'll be in Pennsylvania in about 30 miles.
Well, when I was a kid, we used to do the Enduros up here and the motocrosses. This is where the good stuff was. Some of the motocrosses would be in the valleys. You'd go up one side of the mountain, come down and go up the other. And then there were scrambles races that were similar to the roads we were on, flat, smooth. We'd put street tires on. So that's why I was having fun. It was like an old scrambles track last couple days.
So Pennsylvania has got some interesting roads. They tend to be more crowned, which means they're kind of high in the center and they drop off. What's good about that is on the inside corners, the road is in your favor. It's helping you gain traction. But on the outside corners, it's sloping away from the direction you're leaning, and that reduces traction, and it's often followed by a little pile of loose gravel on the side. So use caution riding these roads, especially on the outside corners. And if you do that, you can have a lot of fun. We're somewhere in Pennsylvania at a historic roadhouse, they call it, kind of a motel with some food. I think we're starting day 6, if I remember right. I think it's Monday, but I've really lost track of time, or the calendar anyway, which is part of what I like about the BDRs, is forget about your emails and the calendar, and you're just riding motorcycles with your buddies.
Talk to the wife, she's still happy, kids are good. They miss me, but I guess not that much, so it's all good.
The route today is going to be a lot of dirt. We're going to try to add on a
an advanced or expert only section.
My goal for today, since they added the expert section just for me, is not to hurt myself and not to go ahead of Paul, because everybody was giving me a bad time about that.
Right now we're in the sort of the mid-level PA, and we're running up north now, up towards much heavier dirt area, a lot more Forest Service roads again. So we'll be off the pavement and be rolling really hard up north.
Well, I was more involved in this part than the southern part, so I'm familiar with this. The roads aren't as twisty, but they're just a blast. I know we're heading into my backyard, Bald Eagle, Rothrock State Forest. After a couple of long slogs on the pavement, I'm ready to get back in the woods and rock and roll and roller coaster. These roads go up and down, left, right. It's a lot of fun.
We just hit a section that had some incredible dirt, really sticky dirt, and some really great whoops. Everybody was getting speed on and testing those suspensions.
The route changed from south to north in a few ways. Number one, the trees were all green at the beginning, and as we've headed north, it's getting later in the year, but also we're getting into the cooler climates, and we're seeing more leaves turning, which is kind of cool. It's still not the full-on, leaves you hear about on the East Coast, but it's heading that direction.
The nature of the way the Appalachians run, they sort of stack up as they head west, go into the northwest. So you climb up a hill, you drop over the top, you run the valley, you climb up a hill, you drop down, and you do that all the way up to the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania.
There's some twisties, some straight sections. I was looking for some straight sections after the last couple days.
We're actually shopping. We're in a small little convenience store that has great fuel access. It's just 3 miles off the route.
I went to the deli counter and I asked the woman for some fresh mozzarella and prosciutto, and she looked at me and said, "I don't even understand what you're saying." And so I had to kind of backtrack, and we settled for some Amish cheese and some salami.
So tonight's going to be smoked sausages with salad, some hors d'oeuvres of honey roasted peanuts, and some chips, and then we're good to go.
We're on day 6. And I think we're at probably 900 miles. It's crazy to know that we've ridden that far and that also our trip's almost done.
So this is Jack's Mountain and Jack's Mountain Road. Welcome.
It's pretty neat being up on the top of the ridge, looking back to the south and thinking about the 900 miles that we did and kind of wondering what's ahead.
And we're at 993?
Yeah.
So we have 200 miles. We have exactly 200 miles left.
Yeah.
Wow.
200 good miles.
Oh, are they good?
Yeah, they're the best.
The best? Okay.
Really? Yep.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
So I just learned something really interesting. There's a group of people up on the hill that are counting broad-winged hawks, and this is a migratory area. They migrate over the top of this, they catch the thermals and ride it down, but they're en route right now towards the Andes, and it's about a week-long event here, and in the last hour they've counted over 800 broadtails come through here.
Wow. So far we've seen 1,090 broadwings. We've saw 1 osprey, 3 bald eagles, 3 sharpshins, 4 Cooper's hawks, 2 red tails, and an American kestrel.
Just today?
Just today.
And these people sit up there for a week-long time. They're all volunteers, and they count all of these hawks that are flying down to Ecuador. Yeah, it was very interesting, but it happens throughout the whole range of the Appalachians. A bunch of volunteers will scout up on top of a hill. So where the bird is catching the thermals in order to get into the high lofted winds, they'll sit there and count them. It's very interesting.
As we got into the north, into the Pennsylvania area, then we got into some Amish country, which is very distinct. Everything is very clean and painted, white. The flowers are planted properly, and we started seeing horses and buggies and little Amish kids on their little push scooters. And
from the point that we started, it progressively got more and more historical. As we moved north, we're into the more revolutionary time period to where there's a lot older buildings, buildings that date back into the early 1700s. Start seeing more of that colonial style.
Greenwood Furnace was a company town, and they used this furnace to create pig iron for building the railroads and a lot of the commercial construction in the big cities. They picked this location because there was iron ore deposits nearby, and also there was this abundance of green forest, which they went on to cut down. 1 acre a day of forest was cut down to run the furnace. And now, we've got trees that are over 100 years old. It's a deciduous tree forest. There's some pine trees around, and it's mature and it's preserved. It's now a state forest, so it's really cool. And riding through here, you would have no idea that this was just a clear-cut, barren land that was, fueling the Industrial Revolution.
There's a great lake right down the road. They buoyed off a swimming hole, sandy beach. We all ran in. Ina then came in and swam, and then she was brave enough to ride the motorcycle back to the campsite in her bathing suit.
I kind of like being the only girl in a group of guys because you get all the attention and all the praise. These are fun guys, and I work with them a lot remotely, so it's fun to finally ride with them personally, and they're super funny. They're awesome riders, so being able to keep up with them makes me feel good. Yeah, I love riding with the guys, but actually I'd love to get another girl in the BDR next year.
Sausages that we picked up earlier today at a real nice little deli / grocery store gas station. We're going to add salad, a little bit of Greek dressing, and mix that all together and have a nice warm meal tonight. It'll be good.
The typical camaraderie on a BDR, at the end of the day, sitting around the fires, telling lies, talking about how many times we've picked up Rob's bike, things like that. It's a great time. There's a good band of brothers here.
So Kevin, Woody, and Ina have the same gloves, actually the same gloves as I'm riding with too, and so I just switched Ina's gloves out for Kevin Woody's gloves. I'm going to see if he can fit his big monster hands into Ina's gloves.
Whose gloves are those?
I can't get these gloves on. For real, what is going on here? I gotta go find the female that owns these gloves.
Okay, so this is the grave of General McAlevey. He was a Revolutionary War general. The funny thing about him was he was fighting the Tories and the Indians before the war started. So when the war started, he was already in. He also built a fort on top of that hill. The interesting thing there is that after he died at the age of 93, all the stones were looted and moved somewhere else. So now it's just a cemetery on top of the hill. But from there you can see 360 in the valley, and very special spot.
So this is the gravestone of William McAlevey. He has a little button here that says he's a Revolutionary War hero. He was born in 1728, died 1822 at age 94. And he's the guy that built this fort that homesteaded this entire area. They say that he came up this local river and then it turned into a creek, and he went as far as he could, and when he couldn't get any further on the creek, that's where he made his fort, which is right here, and this is his gravestone.
You know, these kind of things need to be maintained. Donations help keep these type of sites open.
Yeah, it says our expenses are high and funds are low. Any donations would be appreciated to help the upkeep of our historic cemetery. Thank you, the McAlevey Fort Civic Association.
See, that's what the BDR is all about. Is you know, in the movies you said you want to keep these sites going,
Yeah.
and so this is a perfect thing for that.
It is slippery. This is my second fall on this wet grass.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Woo. Say hello to the cows.
Hello, cow.
Oh my God. I'm just having a hard time this morning.
This one's gonna be a little harder to pick up.
Today we're headed a little further north into Pennsylvania, where I know there's some really good tracks, and I'm really looking forward to that. I've ridden out there before, and I used to trailer our dirt bikes out there and ride off-road all the time, so I'm really looking forward to get into that area.
This is almost like the Pennsylvania State Forest tour we're on. We went through half a dozen today. Tallagaton, Rothrock, Bald Eagle, Penns Creek. Is here, and this river carved a great canyon through the valley, and it's a great view.
You know what's crazy about the East Coast so far? Is we haven't seen a single forest fire remnant anywhere.
Yeah.
And I can't think of another BDR that has no forest. I mean, half the time, significant portions are on fire during the ride, or we ride through burned out sections. And I haven't seen a single lick of fire remnants anywhere.
Getting up into Pennsylvania, then it becomes more remote, and in fact, it's probably more remote. It's probably the most remote area of the whole route, and we're going to see that in the last 250, 300 miles of our ride. There'll be areas that we won't see people for, probably the whole day today.
Well, my gas light is on. I think I have about 150 miles in this gas tank, so definitely, if you have this kind of range as my smaller bike, make sure you carry fuel with you. Jack is carrying 2 bottles and has a siphon, so I've used a couple of his bottles along the route.
I
so
forgot to tell you, this is tequila.
Oh, well, cheers then.
So that little cabin that we just passed?
Yep.
Those are like owned by, I don't know if it's the state or the Forest Service, and you can rent them. Some of them are leased out to gun clubs and whatnot, but you're going to see them all along the route.
They're gun clubs, and they're on state property, but they're leased for like 50 years to some gun club, and it's coming into deer season now. In Pennsylvania, they actually start school early so the kids can take off for deer season, which is right around Thanksgiving. There's turkey and rattlesnake season too, where they hunt them from time to time, or there's a time when you can get them. They're endangered, but there is a rattlesnake hunt.
So on the Mid-Atlantic BDR, we do have one difficult section that's pretty rocky, loose rocks, and so just know that.
As we go down this great, rocky, fast trail, the leaves flying around, and the condition of the road, and it's just so much fun.
You know, this BDR, I would say, is probably one of the easier ones. However, there are some forest roads that for some people might be very difficult. So even though this BDR might be one of the easier ones, you should not let your guard down at any minute. So far, let's see, broken windscreen and bags are okay, a little dusty. I'm okay. So yeah, carry on.
The last couple of days of this route I thought were really nice. We kind of got out of the population centers, got into some forest, Bald Eagle State Forest, and some nice roads that just had this great flow. Curvy, just killer grip. We even found some really off-road stuff where it was kind of 2-track and 3-track at times, and it was just really fun. I think in terms of the fun riding, which is my favorite thing about the BDRs, this route really finishes strong. The last few days are really worth it and a nice way to finish the route.
Today, to me, is like a roller coaster. Up, down, left, right, twisty, turny, a little more flowing than what we saw in Virginia, where that was tighter turns going up the mountain. This, to me, is a little more fun because you can go a little faster and like I said, a flow through the woods.
Finally opens up in the point where we've got a little wider road, not nearly as tight a corners now, so the speed starts to increase a little bit. The tackiness of the road throughout most of this has been really, really good because of the shadows that are on the road, so it's not taking away the moisture. It's not nearly as dusty as it was, say, 2 days ago. The next section that we're doing here is a four-wheel drive trail that cuts off a loop, so it'll be an advanced loop. It's rocky, it's rooty, it's not overly hugely challenging, but it's a good route. I think you guys will like it a lot, and it cuts off probably about a mile of the route.
Drivable trail is the Pennsylvania language for a lesser maintained Jeep trail. It's more rugged, it's typically more fun, I think.
It was more like one of the dual sport trails in Bald Eagle. They have some legal dual sport trails there that are only open certain times of the year, and they're more gnarly, and this was real close to that. I'm an old Enduro guy, but the bags in the back of my bike got me a little spooked going between the trees, so I wasn't in Enduro mode. But pretty interesting route there.
When we have chances to stitch in little sections of it, I think we should. Sometimes it can be too difficult, so we'll have to see. There are some drivable trail sections that are really rocky and steep and might not lend themselves well to a BDR, but if it's big bikeable, I think we should include it. I am unbelievably stoked to finally have an East Coast BDR route, and it took us forever to make this happen, but I'm really excited to do it and even more excited to share it with the community. You know, half of our followers, half of our customers at TourTech are back here on the East Coast, and they've really been asking for a BDR for years and years, so I'm really excited to finally deliver.
This whole trip has been really different from a normal BDR or other BDRs. It's just been, you know, the humidity and the rain and the trees, you know, and the fog that we don't get, you know, back west. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Overall trip, distance-wise, we're probably well into the 3/4 range right now. I think we've gone somewhere in the neighborhood of around 800 miles, 750 miles.
On this route, we ended up staying in hotels or houses that we rented most of the time. I think we camped out 2 nights. And that's one of the cool things about this route is you can either camp, there's plenty of campgrounds along the way, or you can choose to stay in accommodations and sleep in beds. And for this trip, we chose mostly the accommodations just to really show that you can do that on this route.
the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania on the north end of the route, and we're almost to the end. And it's really cool. It's great to be here. You know, after 8 days and almost 1,200 miles, it's been fantastic.
I came up onto the west rim of the Pine Creek Gorge, which is also known as the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. And down the lower section of it, the bottom, is a trail that can be ridden by bicycle. You can fly fish the creek, you can kayak the creek. It's very much a recreational place. Very beautiful to see.
This is known as the Pennsylvania Wilds area. A lot of hiking, mountain biking, fishing, kayaking, fly fishing in the river here. So yeah, this is one of the hot spots for off-road and outdoor activities on the East Coast.
So we finished the 8th BDR, and it's such a feat. It's incredible to think that just in the last 8 years, we've produced 8 routes that generations of riders will be able to enjoy into the future.
You're going to have a smile on your face the entire trip.
I really hope that the Westerners on this trip, we've changed their thinking about the common misconception that there's not great adventure riding out here on the East Coast. We've got a lot to offer, and I hope they really they walk away with the great feeling that there is adventure here. And for the East Coasters, I want them to know that adventure is a little closer than they may think.
So we're 20 miles out from the end of the BDR. My front tire, it's flat.
Is this the first flat we've got?
Yes, this was the first flat. Unlike other BDRs where we would have a flat pretty much every day, a number of them every day. So yeah, I guess I'm just lucky.
Coming over the hill, seeing New York is going to be just this moment of completion of a really long route that has been spread over what we did about 8 days. Anybody that may be on the fence about coming out to the East Coast to do this route, I would say, dispel any of your preconceived notions about this route of being boring or flat, because it's anything but that.
Our goal is to do another route north of here that will go all the way up, hopefully to Canada or to Maine, to the northern end of Maine. And then on the southern end, we want to build another route that goes maybe to the Gulf or to Florida. We're not sure exactly where it will go, but the ideal end game will be that we'll have 3 BDR routes on the East Coast that span from south all the way to the north.
This was a great opportunity to ride with some very experienced riders, doing things that I don't normally do, going places I normally wouldn't go on a motorcycle. I've learned a lot of adventure riding and camping tips that unique to me, and it was all around a great time.
I think Kevin Woody did a fantastic job of linking up the best off-road tracks that we had to offer here.
That just feels good, you guys. This is amazing.
Yay, Kevin! Woo!
It, in my opinion, is probably one of the funnest BDRs that I've ever been on.
I'm so excited to be part of the BDR organization because I feel like we, as creators and also as adventure riders and the stewards of the land, are leaving a legacy for the future generations to be able to ride these routes and experience the backcountry of the United States of America.
First world problem, Sterling. We're ordering a new drone with a sat phone, but I'm on hold at Touratech right now.
Deet, because there's a lot of teats in here. Deets in here. Ticks in here.
Shoot lower, Sheriff. She's riding a Shetland. Come on, let's go.
How did I get this good looking? Well.
This is the first thing I came out to on our last morning of riding with what I thought were my friends.
I'm Reverend Jack Splash, pastor of the Church of the Holy Four-Stroke.
Scratch that, rewind.
Checking it out, and I'm saying words and I'm saying stuff.
Well, you have to edit that out. It's a Triumph thing.
I don't want to tell you about getting the drone stuck in the tree.
Welcome to Pennsylvania.
I don't know what kind of dance it is, but it's not good.